Perfectly all right. Never been sick a day in his life.
Yeah, he never has he? Isn't that a little strange?
Is it?
I mean, no measles or mumps or chicken pox. Not even a cough or a cold.
So?
I just think it's a little unusual.
Okay, let's all go. Let's go.
Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. This is Wait, You Haven't Seen. It's a show where we talk about movies and specifically talk about a movie at least one of us has never seen before. I'm your host, Travis, aka TV's Travis. This is episode number 291. And our movie this week is 1976's The Omen as we continue Spooky Month with the GORE Podcast, Takeover. And joining me for this takeover is the Wicked Kitten, always getting into mischief.
It's all for you, podcasting Satan. It's all for you.
The endearing and ethereal Faye.
Hi.
And the dread you've been feeling since, probably forever. I don't know. Dreadly.
Well, hello. This really should have been episode 666, let's be honest.
I mean, sure. All right, so Dread, I want to start with you. Do you remember when you first saw The Omen?
Exactly no, it has been a while.
Okay.
Probably somewhere in the 2000s.
All right. But you had seen it before. Faye, do you remember when you first saw it?
Probably sometime in the 90s.
Yeah. Just one that somebody's told you needed to watch and you wanted to? Did you seek it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Monica, you had not seen this before.
No, I had not.
All right, so what's that story? How did you not ever see The Omen? Because I'm sure you've seen at least clips of The Omen. It's kind of almost impossible as a horror fan to not. But what's the story behind not ever watching it?
Well, long story short, I assumed it was going to be boring. I had seen The Exorcist when I was in my teens, I think. And at the time of watching that, I thought it was boring. And the first time as a young person I watched The Shining, I thought that was boring. Obviously, well, The Shining grew on me at least. I guess I just, like older movies, they don't always hit you right, and then if you don't watch them right away, later on they become oh, well, I still haven't seen that. Am I going to open the wound now? Or am I going to wait?
Yeah, and also you can sometimes have the issue of like a movie gets talked up a lot, and if you're not sure you're going to like it, and then it gets talked up, then you kind of already go into it with some baggage, and it's an uphill battle for it to really be enjoyable for you. I think sometimes at all. I've noticed that with people that see the Exorcist as a great example for the first time, yeah, especially younger people that see it and they're like, I don't get what all the hype is about. I don't see how this was scary at all. But if you think about it in the context, we talked about that on GORE, of the early 70s in this country with the way especially Catholicism was looked at, it was a very different time. So I get that completely.
Can I add that I also have not seen Rosemary's Baby? These were two movies that I felt were like probably very similar, and I just didn't.
There's definitely similarities there, and I'm pretty sure that The Omen came about mostly because of The Exorcist being such a huge hit, and somebody being like, we need to capitalize on that, and so they went this route with it. What did you think after watching it for the first time? What did you think of it?
Okay, so I'm going to preface everything by saying the music in this movie is amazing, and alone that would have made me like the movie. Can I say that? Was just like, it was like for a 70s movie, it was like, it was moving, it was shaking, it was bringing you through it, so I was appreciative of the music. And the rest of it, like, I thought it was, it's well acted, it's well filmed, it's a cool story. I'm
Yeah,
interested in watching, the possible remake or whatever.
sure.
Mhm.
But the music, by the way, won an Oscar. Jerry Goldsmith
Mhm.
won the Academy Award for Best Original Score, and was nominated also for Best Original Song for the Ave Satini or Santini or however you would pronounce that. That is over the opening credits, and that's pretty rare. Like horror movies, as we have discussed before, they don't get a lot of award recognition ever. It's pretty rare, and music, especially in horror movies, doesn't ever. So for Goldsmith, who apparently wasn't even going to go to the Academy Awards because he had been nominated a few times previously and had lost, so he just didn't want to go. And the thing I read was that Richard Donner talked him into going, but he spent the whole time like chain smoking, like 2 cigarettes at a time to try and calm himself down, which it's a very
Wow.
70s thing. But yeah, the music is fantastic in this movie. But I'm glad that you kind of enjoy it. Dread, what do you think of The Omen, just overall, like as a movie?
Well, first of all, the music is indeed amazing. The movie itself is also very good to me. For a 70s movie, I thought it was actually pretty good pacing. Like, not as slow as some other 70s movies.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And definitely not boring. And of course, certain scenes are, classics for a reason.
Oh yeah,
And
Oh yeah.
it's also amazing how one of them is very early on in the movie, actually.
It's all for you, Damien.
Exactly when, by the
So
way.
good.
Can I point out that is exactly at 13 minutes in?
Mhm.
Nice.
Of course you would notice that, right? um, yeah, Faye, how about you? What do you think of The Omen?
It's enjoyable. It's not one that's going to be high on my list, but it's still a good movie. I don't really have anything bad to say about it.
Yeah, and it very much is a 70s movie. Like it is right
Mhm.
in that. And I had some of my earliest notes while I was going back through rewatching it because I did see this. I don't remember the first time that I saw it, um, in part because of, like I mentioned, it being on like lists and such for so long in terms of like people talking about horror that you see so many clips from it. Just sort of forgot when I first saw it, but um, it's just one of those that left a mark for me because I love these kind of slower burn um, horror movies that kind of play around with the supernatural. I love it when stuff goes full supernatural, but they really didn't like they wanted to. Richard Donner had stated that he wanted as little overt supernatural references in the movie as they could get away with. Um, and the screenwriter David Seltzer wanted to go like full on with it and be like, no, he's the Antichrist, just go with it. And Donner's like, yeah, but why don't we make it so it's like, is he kind of thing? And
Yeah, play with it a bit.
I think that makes it work better personally to have it like it's very obvious that he is, and by the end of the movie they basically confirm that, but you spend so much of the first part of it where it's like on a first watch you're going to view it just a little bit differently than maybe if you go back and rewatch it. You might look at the kid differently, you might look at his interactions with people differently, especially with his mom. So I loved that aspect of it, um, and I also like I'm a sucker for that 70s style where it's like this cacophony of sound all the time, and they're layering stuff over top. It's Jaws does it too, right? There's those scenes in Jaws where Brody is walking into the meeting and like everybody's talking at the same time, so you can just barely pick out the dialogue that you're supposed to be hearing because you're hearing everybody else talk. Like they do that in this. That was a very 1970s thing to do, and I like that as a style. I don't want every movie to be that way because it would get difficult.
No, that sends me out. That's rip off my headphones. I can't do this.
And that's what it's trying, like it's trying to put you in an uncomfortable position as well. So I personally like it, but I understand it's not for everyone. But I felt like here where they used it, it worked. The birthday party especially,
Mhm.
and I forget how early on that is in the movie, like because that's such an iconic moment with the "It's all for you, Damien," and then she just steps off the building, and I forget like, oh no, we're not wasting any time. We're getting right to, like you said, 13 minutes in.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And that's the thing. Like for such an older movie, I'm sitting there and I'm like, "Oh, how long, how long have we been watching this movie already?" And then that happens and I'm like, "All right, you're grabbing me. You know when to do it. You know when to, cuz now I'm paying attention for at least another 20 minutes." So something has to happen in 20 minutes, by the way.
so
Love it.
Oh, it does. Don't worry.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I mentioned David Seltzer wrote this, and Richard Donner directed it. This was kind of Richard Donner's first big time movie, and he went on to do Superman a couple years later with Christopher
Mhm.
Reeve, and then he also did The Goonies. He did the Lethal Weapon movies. He did a movie I really liked with Bruce Willis and Mos Def called 16 Blocks. So like he had a pretty good career, but I forget sometimes this was his first movie, basically first big movie. He'd done some TV stuff and TV series and whatnot before that. But David Seltzer wrote this script and he basically made all of it up. Like he didn't base it off of anything. He wrote it over the course of, I think it was like a year or something. And there was some interview he gave where he talked about like, I just needed money. Like it wasn't a personal thing for him. It wasn't like I want to explore this kind of story or anything like that. He was just like, they wanted a script. I needed money. I wrote this stuff up. So the poem, which I did capture, Gregory Peck giving that poem because that was awesome. That was him. He made that up, and just basically, you mentioned Rosemary's Baby. There's a lot of that DNA in here, and that's where it came about. Now, who of us knew that there was a remake of this in 2006?
Oh,
So
why are we raising our hands on a
yeah,
podcast, by the way? Like
I don't know. So
I did. Julia
you knew,
Stiles, that's all I'm going to say.
yeah. So you knew there was a remake. 30 years later, anybody see that? I'm gonna guess, Monica, you haven't, since you hadn't seen the original, and I know the way you watch movies.
Yeah, no.
Faye,
No. I
you shook
figured it
your
was either
head.
going to be much better or much worse, and I didn't want to spoil myself.
Fair. Faye,
No,
you
I
were
did
shaking
not.
your head. Okay, you did not. Dred, did you ever see the remake?
I have, but don't ask me anything about it because I can't remember. I would guess it was one of those pretty close remakes.
So yeah, I haven't watched it, but I have. I've watched some of the comparison videos people will put out, and I've read a little bit about it, and it's basically the same thing. Um, so
Yeah.
much so that David Seltzer is credited as the writer for the movie, and he had nothing to do with it. But the Writers Guild said, no, 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 this is his movie. It's his script you made, so he has to have the credit for it.
So,
Um,
question can I ask? Did they at least like make some of the death stuff look cooler? Maybe
so okay,
What?
advancements
I
in.
would say that they made them different. They added a death in the remake at the beginning of the movie. So same exact story. And in this movie, we had Gregory Peck as Robert Thorne and Lee Remick as his wife, Catherine. And he is an ambassador. He becomes the ambassador to the UK. They end up in London. In the remake, it's Liev Schreiber as Robert and
Oh,
Julia Stiles as his wife. But he doesn't get appointed as the ambassador in the remake. He gets appointed, his boss does. He's the assistant ambassador, but then they added in a death scene of his boss dying in like the first 10 minutes of the movie.
oh.
And one of the things I like about this, you mentioned the pacing, is I love the pacing of this movie and where they space out the death scenes, because the body count in this is like 6. It's not like a huge body count, but every one of them is impactful. And they spread them out really, really well. So I loved that. because you get 13 minutes in and it's the nanny. And it's a disturbing scene. And even more so, and again, I also forget, like, oh yeah, that was during his birthday party, and there's just a yard full of children that witnessed this happen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that they
and
first
They're okay.
run around and scream, and then there's a bunch of them that just watch intently.
Yeah.
well, I think shock, right? Like
Those kids are
initially,
scarred.
oh, every one of them
Scarred.
is still in therapy. But you do that, and then it's like we don't get anything for a while until Father Brennan, played by Patrick Troughton, who is great in this. And also, Dredd, I don't know about you, but I always remember him being in the movie more than he is.
Yeah, he kind of shows up in the beginning, the early parts, and then he kind of goes away for ages,
Mhm.
and then he basically gets his photo taken a lot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For some reason.
Is that the guy that sells him the baby, or the
No.
priest that comes back later?
The priest that comes back later, the one that shows up at his office.
Because in my brain,
One
they
that gets
look
impaled.
alike. Like, I'm sure they look different, but as I'm watching it,
But
I'm like, was that the
it's-
same priest?
No,
It's the
so
one that has like a standoff with a falling spear, not a spear, but
I'm sorry,
Light-
Hot Fuzz.
lightning rod.
I was screaming Hot Fuzz.
um,
That is great.
so that okay, so the nanny death scene in both the original and the remake are basically the same. The one difference is in the remake, she doesn't fall and then like hit a window. She's just in front of like a wall on the house,
Well, the
in
window's
between
good.
windows.
sad.
But yeah, but what's weird is
Yeah,
they
the
do
window
that,
part is good. 'Cause-
right? But then for Father Brennan's death later on in this movie, it's probably, I'm going to say, for me, it's my favorite scene in it, because he showed up at Robert's office spouting all sorts of crazy, which my notes were like, this isn't the stuff to lead with, dude. Like you need to make a little bit more sense for him to want to listen to you. But
Infuriating.
yeah, but he shows up spouting all that crazy, and then he's gone, and then he shows up back after the rugby match to be like, hey, come find me at this place, we'll talk, and then leaves again.
Did I not make the comment, Dredd, when he was first talking to him and he's like, drink the blood of Christ and do the thing, and I'm like, I bet you the next thing he says is, all right, we won't talk about it now, but we'll meet somewhere else. And that didn't happen in that scene, but that happens later, and then he dies before. I'm like, that's exactly what I knew was going to happen. Just tell him!
Yeah. But then, like, when he does go and meet him on the river, it's a great scene because they have that moment between the two of them. And when Robert's like, all right, whatever, you're a nutcase, I'm leaving. And he just walks away. And Father Brennan then gets up, and then all of a sudden, like, the wind picks up and it gets dark. And I love the shots of him with all the trees, like the big crane up shot and all that. And the storm kicks up. I love everything about this scene. When he's climbing up on, over the fence, and like he goes through the gate, and then the gate gets struck by lightning behind him, and he's banging on the church doors, and they're all locked, and all that, everything, all of it. And then when that lightning rod gets hit and falls off the building and impales him, everything just stops. All the sound stops, the music stops, the wind stops, everything, and it's just the shot of him impaled like that. I love that one because of just the build up. In the remake, and I don't know why they did this, the storm is already going when he meets up with him. It's already raining and dark. So then after they have their meeting and he leaves, it's not like suddenly the storm picks up and things get eerie. It's already going, so it's just an old man running in the rain. And then they go through the same beats where he goes to a church and all of this, but this time when the lightning rod is falling, it goes through a stained glass window on its way down somehow.
Don't ask how that window is there.
Yeah, I don't.
ask.
You don't want to know.
Does it go through two?
but it goes through that, and then it impales him, and a bunch of glass hits him too. And I was like, didn't work as well. Like there was just something missing there.
Yeah.
It looked technically maybe more impressive, although the CG for things like the lightning rod falling off the church didn't look very good. But it just did not have the same impact. Dread, it sounds like you kind of feel the same way.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like they probably wanted to make it a little more impressive, as you said, and add some of the glass, and because they can, and back different times, people might expect more, or they think people expect more, and you kind of miss what the scene was about, and yeah, it's sad. I would like to point out in the original, however, I don't know if they did in the remake as well, but he gets impaled, and then a little after you see it in the newspaper that he died, and they just have the impalement photo.
Right.
And I'm like,
Why? Why would you ever do that?
that's not how that would go. But it was funny that.
Monica, did you pick up how well did you pick up on the foreshadowing of that with Jennings, with David Warner's character, the photographer, and what he was seeing in his photographs?
With the lines and stuff?
With the lines, was that tracking?
Did that happen after or before? When did he talk to him?
So he showed Gregory Peck after, but
yeah,
Yes.
we had a scene of him noticing stuff on the images before that.
Yeah, there's a lot of him like developing photos and smoking cigarettes, which once again I'm gonna say, isn't that dangerous? But whatever.
It was the 70s.
Well,
that was
different
interesting.
The photochemicals I don't think are flammable. But I love I love darkroom scenes in movies, and darkrooms in general. But I just love the taking the photo paper and having to dunk it in the solution and all that kind of stuff.
I will say that I feel like David Warner, who was so hot in this movie, he needed to tell Gregory Peck his thing, and then he needed to run away from this family. Like maybe he would have died anyway, but I feel like maybe he would have been okay if he ran away. Just saying.
Especially because he had his own picture, and he had, the signs.
Yeah, he did, but he's also that plucky journalist, and he wants to figure it out. He wants to know what's going on. So he made a poor decision, is what he did.
Oh goodness. There's the scene I've seen most from this movie before I watched it. Is like I would watch that death on like repeat to see how they did it, to see it. Yeah.
It's fantastic. That is an iconic kill in any horror movie, is Jennings getting decapitated by the pane of glass. And the way that scene goes about too, we're kind of jumping a little bit ahead, but it's too good not to talk about, is Robert has just been told he has to stab a child, right? He's been told, hey, this 5-year-old boy that you've been raising isn't actually a boy, and you need to kill him. And here are the knives to do it. And he's just like, no, I don't want to do that. And so
he killed someone else by throwing
stab him in a ritual order.
Right, ritualistically.
That's a lot of steps.
And so he's just like, no, and he throws him away. And I love, because even if you've never seen this movie and you know nothing about it at all, the second Jennings is like, well, if you won't, I will. It's like, oh, well, you're not leaving this scene alive. Like, you're done.
Yep.
And then he goes over and he's picking the knives up, and the truck starts to roll back, right? And again, this movie was great at the ambiguity of like, well, these could be explained away as accidents that happen to everybody. Like, what happened to Father Brennan was just a thing falling off a building. It just happened to hit him. The scene with the mom when she falls off the balcony or the railway or whatever, could have been a mistake. Could have been, it was just a terrible accident. And then this
Yeah, I think it was having fun.
yeah, which is a
Oh,
thing.
no.
Also, the remake
No.
made much more explicit that Damien was all about knocking her off of there intentionally than this movie did. Like the way the kid acted that scene was the way that they had that framed was a lot more like he's acting weird but also acting kind of like a kid at the same time. It's weird. It's strange. But the remake was just a lot less ambiguous about it and more of like Damien staring her down like evilly. But I liked the Jennings kill because you could explain away that like the guy bumped the parking brake and that was enough for it to slip out of and just fall back. And then as you're watching it, I mean, you knew what was coming already, but you could see where like it's almost a fake out for a second because you think the truck's going to hit him. But then the truck stops and that's when that piece of glass slides off and just pops the head right off.
What a surprise.
Which almost got them an X rating, by the way. They managed to secure an R, but the MPAA wasn't going to let them, almost not let them have that one. In the remake, it's actually a pretty good, because they don't do exactly the same thing. Instead of it being a truck and a pane of glass, they have a different way that he gets decapitated, and it's pretty good. But I also like this one better. It's just iconic. Yeah. It's such a good scene.
Yeah, but where's the quickening gonna go?
Well, as long as there's an immortal nearby, they'll get it. Whoever's closest. I really liked Father Brennan, but I just remembered him being in it more. But again, that's that pacing, right? So the nanny, and then it's Father Brennan getting impaled, and then it's what happens with Mom, Catherine, and she goes through. I mean,
can I put up my gripes?
Yeah,
I got some gripes about the 1970s.
Yes,
you knew I was going to have some.
Of course.
Okay. Hi, husband. You're going to lie to me about us losing a child, and then you're going to pick up a random one down at the shop and bring it up to me and never tell me. Never. Not even when it's impacting my mental health. You are never going to tell me.
Yeah.
What now? What's going on?
And then deny the abortion request.
I did love how she brought that up, by the way. First, I've decided I'm never having children again. Oh, okay. So you're going to give me the abortion? What? I'm pregnant? What?
Well,
that was a great scene. That was like,
but it
what
worked.
A selfish jerk.
But also, like the way that scene unfolds is really great because he's just had his meeting with Father Brennan, who has told him your wife is pregnant, and Damien is going to try and kill that baby and your wife. You need to stop him. And then he goes home, and she's like, "Oh hey, I'm pregnant. I just found out this morning." So, if you're Robert, I mean, first of all, you're just getting hit left and right by all this stuff, and no, it's terrible. Like my one of my very first notes was, no, maybe not do that. Like this is already starting off in a bad way. You're making horrible decisions. And then to double down on it like that. And then when he meets with the psychiatrist after that scene with her, he meets with her psychiatrist. He does, not her.
What the hell was going on in the 70s?
Look, it was a different time. It wasn't right. But when he meets with the psychiatrist, but when he meets with the psychiatrist, my note on that was, okay, he's wrong. And I understand that. But I also understand his reasoning to an extent. And it was, he was just told somebody is going to try and kill his baby before it's born. Some crackpot that he's never met before or met one time before told him somebody's going to try and kill your baby. I don't want to let that happen. So like, I get that to an
Yeah.
extent, but so much of it and reaching that point, he did not in any way get to that point correctly.
It's just
So
like the thing that's so wrong about it is that, like, of course he's allowed to have his feelings about it. The
Mhm.
problem is that at every turn he makes it like he is the man and it is
yes.
his decision to make without her.
hmm
Like, she doesn't want it, he does. There needs to be more of a conversation than, no, I'm not allowing you to get it.
Yes.
But the fact that that was the time is so freaking sad.
Agreed. Wholeheartedly
Like,
agreed.
it's just so. And also, if technically she did that, it wouldn't be Damien killing the baby. It would be her, or
Right.
the doctor, whatever you want to call it,
Unless the doctor's name is Damien. Ha!
or the fetus, whatever you want to call it. Not the point. Let's not get political here. We're just saying, Damien, you friggin' evil bastard. But I realize it's totally ambiguous that he like knocked her off, and I'm not saying, but like in my heart, I just like I knew it, because he's just evil.
Damien?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just know it.
Well, and that's the thing,
It
right?
could be
Like
taken either way, but I took it as definitely.
you came into this kind of already knowing, no,
That's
Damien is that. And the movie is just confirming it. But you could see where if you knew nothing about it, your first time watching it, you would have some questions. Like even that scene with her. So Catherine's cleaning, right? And
Like an idiot. Yeah.
and Damien's just riding his bike in a circle in his room with Mrs. Baylock, who is played by Billy Whitehall.
Yeah.
Mrs. Baylock was fantastic for the little bit that she's in the
Yes.
movie. Is just like crazy old
So evil.
evil woman. And
I'm gonna protect you, Damien.
I'd
I
like to
love-
see the child alone. What? I'm sorry.
Uh,
No.
Oh, that was great, by the way. Yeah, where did you find her? I didn't. You did.
Oh, the
Oh,
agency
no.
sent me.
Wow.
I may
Oh,
have some
the
audio
agency?
for that.
Oh, okay.
We might be listening to that. But yeah, her whole introduction scene was great. But the scene with so Damien's riding in a circle and Mrs. Baylock is watching him. There were some great camera
Intently.
movements in there too, by the way. That
Oh, yeah.
that swooping sideways, like spinning camera movement that they did for that really was disorienting, and I loved it because it went like the frame turning, like just all of that was cool. But that whole scene, the way it unfolds is, again, you could make the argument that it was an accident because Damien, as he's riding his tricycle through the house, isn't looking where he's going. He's looking down, riding intently.
Yeah, I will add to this that I forget who said this at whatever point in my life, but I remember hearing someone say, well, of course the kid's evil. You don't name him Damien and he's not evil. And it's like,
Yeah,
you don't
it is
realize
an
that
evil
that's
name.
that name is associated with that because of this movie.
Yes,
But
I was
you
going to
know
ask.
that without watching the movie.
Mhm.
And that's so funny. It's like I can't think of the word for that, but it's like a palindrome. That's not what it is.
Palindrome.
What's the
yes.
thing where it's like a
Backwards.
circle?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like this created that.
Two nitpicky things on that scene, by the way.
Sure.
First of all, the kid turning in circles all this time for a very long time. So once he's set loose by his nanny, he should crash immediately because he's woozy.
But he's
No.
supernatural. He's
Right, if he wasn't-
supernatural.
Okay,
he doesn't
okay,
get dizzy.
Yeah, he's evil.
Well, second nitpick then. He has a very squeaky bike.
He does.
I feel like the mom should hear him from a mile away.
Also, what the hell was
Kinda
the mom
did.
doing?
Uh,
What was
was-
she doing? Why was she doing that? She has an entire house of staff.
yeah,
Boredom.
true.
Yeah.
Like, boredom.
Once-
How about you take care of your child or something? That was another thing that bothered me. I realize he's evil or whatever, but like, you were like, you know what?
Hmm.
Rich people. That's all I'm
Yeah,
gonna say.
kind of. What did you think of the safari scene where they go to the little safari zoo? Like,
That's such a stupid idea to let people drive their own car
Yes.
through wild animals.
That is
So
so dumb.
weird.
and
I
yet,
mean, those monkeys sure didn't like him.
Yeah.
No.
Those
wasn't-
giraffes pieced.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were
They
just
were
like,
like,
nope,
nope.
I'm out. That was another thing that in the remake in 2006, they have a scene, instead of them driving through a zoo like that, it's just they're at a zoo, and the monkeys get all upset, and Damien even says like they're afraid at some point, and it's just much more obvious that he's affecting them. And I kind of like in this where like he's just like fascinated by the monkeys, and then they start getting freaked out, and he doesn't really maybe understands what's going on, but probably doesn't. But also like somewhat enjoys it, and yet is freaked out because it's a bunch of baboons screaming and jumping on the car at the same time. So I don't know. I liked that. Also, I could imagine being in that car and it would scare the living shit out of me.
Oh yes.
Because baboons are scary. Yeah. I did capture some audio from this though, if you want to hear any of those. Would you like to hear some clips?
Go for it.
Yes.
Okay. This first one, the opening of the movie, as he's getting driven through Rome, it's the 6th of June at 6 a.m. And you get the voiceover as he's driving, and you hear,
He breathed for a moment. Then he breathed no more.
he breathes for a moment, and then he breathes no more. I just like that. But the second one I captured, I did not edit this in any way. This is a straight capture from the movie.
The child is dead. Dead. The child is dead.
That is not my editing. That was the editing of the movie.
That's ominous.
It was very, very strange. But that was the voice of the priest that we meet later on when he's all burned up. He's the one that writes with the slate.
Oh god, that burn makeup thing. That looks creepy. Jeez.
Do you remember the one from the remake? Because it's terrible. Like it looks
I
like
believe that.
rejected monster makeup from a Guillermo del Toro film.
Oh.
It's a bummer.
I mean, as you said, 2006, right?
Yeah.
That's like
That's a terrible time for these kind of movies.
Yeah, that's wow. Like seriously, talk about like the worst times to remake a movie with like special effects because now you're using this subpar
Mhm.
CGI and
And not only that, but I'm convinced that the only reason they remade that movie in 2006 was so they could have 666 release date, because they released it June 6th, 06.
Okay,
Like-
I appreciate that. Yes.
So yeah. But anywho, let's see. Her own. Oh, okay. So this one I'll play and then I'll explain why I captured it.
You could adopt a child.
She wanted her own.
Okay, she wanted her own, but adoption is perfectly legitimate unless you're adopting the devil in this case. Like, I understand hindsight being 2020, adoption wasn't the right avenue to go for this family. However, don't dismiss it like that. Come on. I mean, but I just like the priest is like, well, you could adopt. We got an extra kid over here. Happens to not have a mom. You have a mom without a kid. We could make this work. Catholics, the Catholic diocese doing their work. But yeah, just like she wants one of her own. Okay, that's fine. Apparently, it's not going to happen. So I don't know. And then the priest really trying to sell it to him.
Your wife need never know. It would be a blessing to her.
No, it would not be a blessing to her to lie to her and not tell her where the baby came from.
need never know. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
The Catholic Church lying to women for centuries.
Yeah, that one was. I was like, oh, come on. 13 minutes in, and we get.
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
So, can I tell you what that makes me like? I am a very, as I said in the Pearl episode, I feel things very deeply,
Mhm.
and when I hear that, even just listening to it now after watching it, like I get this like tingling feeling in my chest of like creepiness. Like, because it elicits an emotion. The
Oh yeah.
way her voice sounds when she's about to do this thing, there's something so wrong. Like, it feels like she's so happy, but I can tell
Yeah,
it's
it's like,
against her
look
will.
at me.
Yep.
You know what
Oh
I
yeah.
mean? Like, I can just feel it. And either that actress is just great or, I don't know. But
Well,
I love it.
speaking of,
Did they change that? Did they change that line in the remake? Because in my mind, this might be one of those Mandela effects. In my mind, it's all for you, Damien. It's all for you. And then she jumps. Well, it's clearly
It's all for
different.
you.
they might have. I
Well,
don't know. I don't remember now.
It might
But
be my brain.
It's
true.
been parodied so many times.
Or maybe that.
yeah, that's the other part of
maybe
it.
that.
You know who that actor was though that played the nanny was Holly Palance, or Palance,
Ooh.
depending on how you want to pronounce that. The daughter of Jack. Um,
Oh, that's great.
and apparently, trivia states that she got cast because Donner had done a TV movie with Jack Palance just before this, and Jack found out he was heading to London to shoot, and he's like, "Oh, you should hire my daughter," and so he did.
And what a role she
Man,
played.
I need nepotism. But
Right?
she was good.
She was.
yeah,
she was very
great.
It
good.
was such a small role, but good.
It's
Correct.
impactful, right? It's not a lot of screen time, but you don't forget that one. Like,
Never forget that.
this was Dredd. You mentioned this line earlier, but I liked this exchange. By the way, Gregory Peck, fantastic. I love Gregory Peck, and he was semi-retired at this point. He felt like his career was kind of winding down. He was getting ready to retire, and got offered this, and took it. And I really liked him. But this exchange with Robert and Catherine.
Where did I find her? I didn't find her. I assumed you found her.
Yeah. I assumed you found her. I assumed you found her. Well, shit. All right. I guess
Props,
we got a nanny.
however, because
Let's
while we
trust our
were
kid to
watching
them.
this, I think it was you, Monica, was like, well, typical. They're just gonna be okay with this.
Yeah.
No, no one knows,
Yeah,
but they're gonna be okay. But then the next scene, at least they come up to the nanny. They're like, "Hey, wait a minute." Of course, then they're
There's, like,
easily satisfied
Where
with
did you
her
get the
reasoning.
agency? Here are my references.
Oh,
Like it's
okay.
Yeah.
and we're like, all right, at least they asked the second question. That's
Yes.
something. But still, like they were more than happy to be like, oh, we don't have to think about our kid anymore.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, absolutely. They're just like, no, you can take. All right. The agency sent you. Sure. What agency?
The agency.
But it's the 70s. They don't have super good record keeping. She came with references. She
Who
looks
knows what that paper said?
matronly. I'm sure she's fine.
Well, you know how
not a
those
very
young
good
girls
nanny,
are.
yeah.
They're falling in love and going off and quitting and stuff. So, they
You
sent
won't have
me.
that problem with me.
Yeah.
And trying to steal the babies.
And apparently that was another one where the character was written differently initially, and when Billy Whitelaw came in, she played it very like sinister. And it's funny, right? Because it's so blatantly obvious that she's evil. And there's no way that any parent would be like, you were not allowed within 90 yards of my child. And if you come within 90 yards, I will get a court order to say that you can't. But it works. It fits in this movie so well. And her performance is great. And I guess she brought that, and they were questioning it. And Richard Donner was like, no. We got to have her. She's the one.
And she's constantly defying Gregory Peck, like
Yeah.
constantly
All the
with
time.
the dog and the thing. And
Get
would've
rid
been
of the
fired.
dog. Yeah, I want to keep
I'll
the dog.
look into this.
I'll get
when I
rid of
get
it.
back.
Oh, the
Whoa.
dog's still here. Oh.
Can I will tell you, because I watched this with Claire and Bombi, but I will tell you the funniest comment that Claire said that made, I guess, most of us laugh, but at least me laugh, is she goes, doesn't this guy have a job? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, he's the ambassador. And she's like, well, why does he keep going play? Because the whole movie he's just flying around to different countries, investigating stuff. He's never working. We've never seen him work in this whole movie.
Yeah, he's an ambassador.
Ambassadoring.
It was hilarious.
He's
But it's true.
ambassadoring
I want to
everywhere.
be an ambassador now.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good gig if you can get it.
Yeah, I'm gonna fly off to Italy for the weekend. Bye.
Sure.
Ciao.
So, but yeah, she does defy him. Baylock does all the time, and like, get rid of the dog. Yeah, sure, okay, I'll get rid of the dog. Comes back a few days later. That dog is still here. Oh no, it'll be gone tomorrow. Good dog though.
I saw it
Already got rid of
again.
it.
They picked it up this morning. All right, if you say so.
And then later on,
And the whole
dog's still there.
church thing.
Yeah, but
Yeah, the
then
church
the
thing.
Church thing as
driver and the cook, I think, who are married.
Yeah, they
are
just
gone.
disappear.
They
That's
just
fine.
disappear. That's
That's
creepy.
fine.
So, okay, theory, Faye, what do you think happened to them?
They were scared off, or they were killed. It's one of the two.
All right.
I can't say which because it doesn't really allude.
Yeah. We never find the bodies.
That's
Yeah,
true. Patrick Troughton, by the way, Patrick Troughton of Doctor Who fame. He was the second Doctor. And when he just shows up at Robert's office and locks the door and immediately is just spouting crazy. And I love when the Marine finally gets in there and they're hauling him off and he just turns around.
Accept Christ each day. Drink his blood.
I thought it was a vampire movie.
It's his body.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I feel like
You're
there's
the
a
sign of
better
the cross.
right. There's
Genuflect.
a better
Like-
way to present this argument to this guy than leading with drink his blood. Like, I know where you're going, but you're nuts. By the way, and in the 2006 version, that character is played by Pete Postlethwaite. On paper, that 2006 remake should work because the cast is crazy. Liev Schreiber, I mentioned, Julia Stiles, Pete Postlethwaite. They got David Thewlis to play Jennings, which is basically his generation's version of David Warner. So it's kind of perfect.
David Warner, though.
Oh,
This is
I mean,
the youngest I had seen him, by the way. And we had just watched a movie called, what was that movie? The Vampire Bats or something? The Vampire or the Bats or something? It was like an
Vampire
old
Night-
movie.
Night
It was
Bat-
another Hammer film, I think.
Nightwings.
Nightwings.
ah,
He was so young.
There was a serious lack of vampires in that one.
so
We were promised vampires.
Yeah, we
You're
were promised
vampires?
vampires,
You're a vampire,
and we were lied to. Lied.
And David Warner, who, if you've never seen this before, you might think, is he a good guy or not? Because like David Warner will play villains often, and he's very good at that. And early on, we only see him taking photos of people, and then there's the scene where Robert runs into him and knocks his camera down. And he's like, sorry, just send me a bill for it or whatever. And I love this.
Well, that's all right, Mr. Ambassador. Let's just say you owe me.
Like, that's just, I just love that
Yeah.
delivery. It's just dripping with like, I'll just say you owe me. I'm like, oh, how's that going to come back later? So yeah. Let's see. I don't remember this one. And I just how do I do this? I capture audio, I label it, and then I don't remember what it is. Oh, okay. So this is, I remember what this is now. This is from the scene we were talking about where, so Robert has just met with Father Brennan, who has told him, your wife is pregnant, your kid's going to try and kill her. Your 5-year-old is going to try and kill her. By the way, your 5-year-old is not your kid. He's the Antichrist. Oh, and here's a long drawn-out poem that explains what I'm trying to tell you. And then he goes home and he's talking to his wife, and she says,
I'm pregnant, Robert. I just found out this morning.
how did the priest even know that, is my question.
Divine intervention. No, that's
Oh.
not the word I'm thinking of.
Well, the only explanation is the priest is the dad.
My thing is that he must have gotten some sort of like message from somewhere, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's in
That
a
is-
scene we didn't
yeah.
get.
Well,
I think it's probably just timing for a movie's sake, because he probably says, this is what's going to happen, because prophecies or whatever.
Oh,
blah,
maybe
blah,
it
blah,
is a
poems.
prophecy, right?
And he's just saying, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. And it's just the timing of the movie that's made it the same day. Whatever.
Could be.
Because he's the one. He's a bad guy who's trying to be good right now, right? He's
Yes,
trying to
yeah, because he
redeem
had
himself.
the mark. He had the 666 mark.
Yeah. He has been touched
Well,
by evil.
maybe the Satan had like a little day planner, and he got to take a little look at it, and
He
that's
was in
how
the
he knew what was
office.
happening.
Yeah, he was
That's
in the
why he
office and
couldn't
looked
say
at
it the
it.
first day, because
Right.
she wasn't pregnant. Yeah, but when she was, he saw it and he ran over to give the message. There, we figured it out.
Boom.
Movie solved.
Um,
We did
I
it.
also, right before that, she tells Robert,
Robert, I don't ever want to have any more children.
This music, by the way.
Okay, that music might have been a little cheesy, right, in that section.
That's
It's
some
very
70s
like
era.
movie of the week.
Because they used that same music thing early on when they first get to that house and they're out walking, and Damien goes missing for a second. It's that same like movie of the week type
Oh.
music.
Okay,
That was great.
I'd like to give another gripe and another proving my point of these parents
Yeah.
who they're just walking along, they're not paying attention to their kid, they lose him. There's another scene where she's not paying attention, she loses him. And there's another scene where she's just like, just take him away. She's like, I can't take him, and I'm like, he's only being a kid. He's not even being a demon right now. Like,
Yeah,
And there
or-
again,
yeah.
oh god,
No, that wasn't just before the scene that we just played. He gets home, she's on the couch,
Mhm.
kids playing, and
yeah,
even
And
he's
I
like,
love how he just arrives. He's fine.
Yeah.
She's probably been there for hours
Right.
listening to the racket.
must be
And
nice.
he's
to be
like,
able to,
no, leave him.
must be nice to be able to like tell someone to take your kid away, right?
that's what rich people can do. That
Exactly.
Yeah. That was another thing that the 2006 version did differently was like the scene where Damien goes missing while they're out walking. In that movie, you can see him hiding and like making a bigger deal out of like intentionally trying to frighten them. Whereas in this, he just like got lost. It's much more ambiguous, and I kind of like that a little bit better because maybe he was actually hiding from them, but we're not sure one way or the other.
Yeah.
You can kind
That's
of
the other thing.
play it both ways.
Did you like with the ambiguous thing, it's like sometimes you wonder, like, before like the dog showed up, did he know who he was? Was he conscious of it? Was he not? Like,
Right.
did that flip a switch inside of him? Because by the end, that look that he gives you.
Oh yeah.
the smile.
Which I love that to get that, Richard Donner directed the scene using some reverse psychology and basically told the kid, do not smile. Don't you laugh. I don't want
I
to see you
believe
laugh
him.
or smile at all. So the kid's just trying not to, and then he just lets that smile out. Like, it was perfect. And the kid was good. Harvey Stevens plays him. And the story is that he got cast because they would do the auditions, and in the audition Richard Donner would have the kids like, all right, the scene in here, and it was the scene from the car where he attacks his mom, so he would have the kids do that to him, and I guess this kid like started clawing at him and kicked him in the junk and all this, and he's like, all right, you got the role. And I hope that that's how it went, because that's a good story. Maybe not, but I like that story. Like, the kid just went for it and attacked him hard.
Yeah, that scene was that's a kid that does not want to go into that church.
No.
My God. And like, okay, here's another question. Like, what's with the mom's hat in that scene? By the way,
know.
like, what was?
I don't know
I
what
feel
that
like
was.
the only point of her wearing that hat was to have the whole like him getting so upset that he rips it off her head, basically. Like, that's it.
Something. I mean, I loved Gregory Peck's, top hat and tails. That suit was great. Also, by the way, Harvey Stevens does have a small cameo in the remake. So the kid, Damien from the original movie, does get a cameo in the remake of The Omen.
I heard he
always-
I heard he was in jail or something.
Yeah.
This is like, I'm not
I-
sure if that's 100% true or.
No, there was something where something happened. I don't remember what it was now, but he had some kind of legal issue at one point.
Yeah. Poor
When
kid.
so after the mom falling off the balcony, banister, whatever, the way they did that, because this was after The Exorcist, right? And Ellen Burstyn was famously injured in The Exorcist by a stunt. So Lee Remick was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do like a falling stunt at all. So what they did was they built the floor or a replica of what the floor would look like as a wall and filmed it standing up. So that's how you get that kind of, the way she moves looks so weird because
I
they
thought it
dollied
looked
her
odd,
in.
yeah.
And it,
Yeah.
you know what it made me think of? It really gave me Hitchcock.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking, and I was gonna say, I'm like, where was the person inspired by that? Because it's got like that feel, but it's also a little weird. But I guess
Yeah.
that's also
Like it really reminded me of Mr. Arbogast in Psycho falling down the stairs.
Yeah, the way it's like, I love that.
So then she, of course, is in the hospital, and that's when he goes and sees her, and I did capture this.
Don't let him kill me.
Well, he fails.
Yeah.
Spoilers for people listening to this episode.
That was
He does.
hell of a jump.
My God,
Um,
that poor woman. She got the worst of it all. Let's be honest.
she did. She very much
Like
did.
everybody else, it was a quick slicing of the head or pole stuck in your body, and
Next
Dad
thing
got
she was
shot.
jumping.
She had to endure so much more than everyone else, and she got punished the most. Like, what does that say to you? There's another thing.
Yeah. So after Robert gets the phone call that his wife is now actually died, because Mrs. Baylock showed up at the hospital and effectively threw her out a window, and he's just laying there on the pillow. You get two real. I mean, again, Gregory Peck is fantastic, but first is,
I want Damien to die too.
like, all right, we've gone there. And there was just something about that delivery, but then also he recites the poem that Father Brennan told him, and this is a longer clip, but I do think it's worth playing if you want to hear it, because I like this poem a lot. So here's that.
And I remember the poem when the Jews return to Zion and a comet fills the sky. The Holy Roman Empire rises, and you and I must die. From the eternal sea, he rises, creating armies on either shore, turning man against his brother, till man exists no more.
I mean, that's pretty good.
Clearly talking about Cthulhu.
Right.
Well, yeah. It's actually talking about politics.
That was a bit of a reach, I feel like.
Yeah.
The Roman, it's politics.
Yeah,
The eternal sea.
Yeah, the sea of
Oh
politics.
yeah, and the Romans were some economic stuff or something.
Yes, it was foretold.
Sure.
So when they end up in Israel, because again, jet setting, right? They're all over the place. They're in Italy. Then they're at that. There's the whole scene in that graveyard. After they go to Italy to go to the hospital in Rome where Damien was born, to find that it had burned down, and nobody, there's nothing, there's no record, no nothing. But they managed to get one of the nuns to remember the priest from 5 years ago, and then he survived, and they sent him to this monastery. So they go to that monastery, find that guy who's all burned up, and he doesn't talk, but he can kind of write with one hand. And so he does, and he writes down the name of a cemetery, because the other monk there was like, oh yeah, no, this is that place. You don't want to go there. There's nothing there. And Robert's like, I want to go there. You don't want to go there. There's nothing. I'm going there. So they go there, and they get attacked by dogs. Like, just nothing's going right. And that's after they find the graves. They find the mother. Yeah. Well, they find the grave of the mother of Damien.
Also one of those scenes that you remember.
Well,
surprise.
Yeah. Well, and at first, like I'm curious, Monica, for you, when they open the grave of the child, what, like, were you understanding where Robert was coming from, where he's like, they killed my son? Because at first you're like, no, it's just there's a baby skeleton, obviously, but they didn't kill him. He was just stillborn, because that's the story that they gave him until you notice the skull.
Yeah. Then you realize that it wasn't just like a happenstance of like, oh, there's another baby that was born at the same time that yours died or whatever, which is a weird thing to say, by the way. But like that they actually killed the baby.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
For this, to swap-a-roo, basically, switcheroo.
Yeah.
And that's horrifying.
Yeah.
It absolutely
I'll go
is.
watch the first Omen.
Right.
Oh
well,
yeah, that's my next step, unless Travis wants me to wait or something. But
no, the first
I've been told.
the first Omen leads directly into this movie. It's
I've been told
leading up to
it does a lot to enhance this story even more. That's what I've been told from other people who've seen both. So I'm excited to see it.
But they do end up in Israel. They finally, because early on, Father Brennan, and I got this line because this is so good out of context. It just sounds like he's having a stroke. But this was from earlier on, when this is Father Brennan talking to Robert and tells him,
go to the city of Megiddo. See Bugenhagen before it's too late.
Out of context, and even in context, none of that makes sense. It just sounds like random noises. Go to the city of Megiddo and see Bugenhagen before it's too late. Hold on, what? Who?
Bugenhagen is the greatest. It sounds like something that a Street Fighter character would yell out when fighting.
Bugenhagen. I thought it was a Final Fantasy person.
Oh yeah, could have been.
I'd be mistaken.
But when they do finally find him, I got 2 lines from him because it was just too good. First of all was,
"This is not a human child."
I just like that. That character, by the way, in the remake, played by Michael Gambon. Which makes me want to watch those scenes just because I love Michael Gambon so much.
Yeah, I could only hear Professor Arturo because it sounds so much like him. It's not him, but it sounds like him.
Yeah. And then one more line from Bugenhagen, and again, great name. And this one could just be on a soundboard because this is a great standalone line.
"You must be devoid of pity."
You must be devoid of pity. I liked that. I mean, it ultimately was just out of nowhere, but it was still fun. You can see how this came along on the coattails of something like The Exorcist, but also how it influenced a lot and makes those lists. So overall, you enjoyed it, right, Monica?
Yes, I had a good time. I don't know if it's going to be something I rewatch a lot, but I liked it more than The Exorcist. I'll say that. How about that? I give it that seal.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I enjoy it more, I should say. You know,
that's fair. All right, Dread. I have a guess, but favorite death.
Okay, so first of all, the beheading part, I completely forgot that was from this movie. I remember the scene. I don't remember it being in here. I was like, ooh, yay! But it has to be. It's all for you. It's all for you.
Yeah.
That's a good one. It's a good one. Faye, how about you? You got a favorite? Is that your favorite?
I like the beheading.
It's a good one. Like, as movie decapitations go, it's great, and it's done in slow-mo. They shot it with like 5 cameras, so you get multiple angles. And I think the quote from Richard Donner was he wanted to have the moment because everyone would close their eyes, and then when they opened them back up, the head would still be in midair.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get like the kind of replay of it 3 or 4 times. It's so good.
The best part is that what he didn't realizes that horror fans would be that much happier with the longest scene ever of a decapitation, that they would slow down and watch and rewatch to see the exact moment when just I love that scene so much.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's so good. Is that your favorite?
You know, for for shock value, yeah. But I think the nanny is just so. Can I take a tie again? I'm gonna take a tie. Although the poll was really good because I have the Hot Fuzz already in my brain, and the fact that it's like almost the same exact thing except not really funny.
Right.
It was it's cool to see because then they were inspired, I'm guessing, by this movie for that.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
For sure. That movie inspired a lot of this. And in fact, Mrs. Baylock in this movie is in Hot Fuzz. Billy Whitelaw is the woman that runs the hotel that's doing the crossword puzzles.
Oh,
That's Billy Whitelaw.
really?
So,
oh, God,
nice.
Now I have to go rewatch that movie, which is great because it's a great movie.
It really is. For me, it's Father Brennan, and just because of like the build up for that whole scene, the fact that it goes from a nice day to it flips, and all of a sudden it's this horrible storm, and all this crap happens, and then he gets impaled, and it just stops, and the sun comes back out, and I just loved every bit of that. So
yeah, that part, the storm, like the lightning hitting the fence part, that looked so good.
Oh yeah.
Like,
and I mentioned it,
70s.
but the body count in this movie is fairly low. You've got 6. So Father Brennan, Jennings, the nanny, Catherine, who's pushed out a window and falls into an ambulance, Mrs. Baylock, who Mrs. Baylock is killed.
Flips.
Yeah, she goes through that ambulance.
Look, at least she's in the ambulance to come back to the hospital.
Right, exactly.
So, convenient.
Mrs. Baylock is killed by Robert in their fight, which originally was longer, but they cut it down. The editor for this movie, by the way, Stuart Baird, did a lot of work with Richard Donner to trim it up and tighten up the movie, and I think that helps the pacing. He also went on to do some directing on his own, and he directed a movie I think is underrated. I love U.S. Marshals with Tommy Lee Jones and Wesley Snipes, and that was a Stuart Baird directed film.
The sequel to
The Fugitive.
The Fugitive,
yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then Robert is the last one to die in the movie, where he's shot by the cop, which
so sad.
Was not the original ending. Original ending of this movie, Robert kills Damien. And they changed it.
Create that.
And then,
why did
and then Sam Neill is never born. What?
Oh God.
Yeah. Forget that sometimes that he was Damien in the third one. Yeah, they originally had that as the ending. Good triumphs, but the MPAA was like, no, we're not going to have you killing a kid in the movie. Sorry. And so they changed it.
This movie. I just want to, and I'm just going to point out, like, we do not have issues with this in today. So if you want to remake the Omen and put the ending back the way,
kill some kids,
yeah, nobody's going to have an issue with you.
Well, and that's the thing, right? So the Omen, I think if you were to remake the Omen today, you would do it differently than what they did. And in 2006, they just remade the same movie. And at that point, why? What's like?
It's like the Psycho remake almost, right? Well, even though I haven't seen it, it sounds like
it's very similar to that. Like the Psycho remake was even more so because they did like a shot for shot remake. The Omen in 2006 at least didn't. They had all the same story beats. They just didn't do the exact same shots. But that one, it just like missed the point, I think, and it didn't have the same atmosphere. So yeah, but no, that's the Omen. I thoroughly enjoy this movie. I'm curious. I will be very curious to get your thoughts on the first Omen. We might have to just do that as like a watch party sometime. I did see it in the theater, so I have seen that one. But I'm curious to get what you think of that both on its own and then in the context of like now that you have seen The Omen, how it works for
We
you.
will,
So.
we will say that seems to be the way, though. Like in the 2000s, we were remaking so many things, and it seems like nowadays it's more about the legacy sequels and the
Yeah.
prequels and stuff, and that's how you make things like a better story, because you just kind of add on to what was already there, which could be good. So I'm excited to see it.
Because it's always interesting to explore more in a world, especially when there's ambiguity in it, to learn more about it and kind of what led to what we had. So it's very cool. We love to talk about horror movies, the four of us, and we do that on a regular basis outside of the month of October. Tell people
do?
about that. Yeah, we do.
Oh, it's me.
It's you.
Yes, we do a podcast called Gore. It's all about horror movies. It is us getting together and being silly and talking about horror movies. I already said that. We have an episode coming out at the end of this week, which is the 25th of October, I should say, because that makes more sense, because who the hell knows when you're listening to this.
Right.
But it's going to be Halloween 4, the return of not the witch guy, the man with the mask face.
William Shatner.
Return of the man with the terrible mask. How about that? We'll call that movie.
There you go.
But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Gore is a lot of fun. I enjoy every episode, even when the movies are terrible, because some of our listeners apparently hate us. So,
I enjoy when the movies are terrible, because that means Travis also had to watch them.
That is true.
He suffered along with us.
Listen, outside of one, I've been able to get through and been fine with all of them, even when they're bad. There's just the one that almost made me rage
but
quit.
we're helping you build up your tolerance.
Yeah. Hey, look,
we're changing you.
I like schlock as much as anybody else, but I also do like when something does a little bit more, goes a little, in a different direction. So I just like movies in general. As long as they can hold my attention, I'm good. Just that one damn thing was barely a movie. I'm not letting that go ever. Just so you know, never letting that go. But hey, if you like this show, I record every week right here, twitch.tv/tvstravis, youtube.com/@tvstravis, talking movies. We have one more episode for our spooky month this year. And we've watched, we've had our anthology. We've watched a classic. We've watched some Pearl, which was a kind of instant classic. We're going to go in a very different direction for our last episode this year. We are going to watch Peter Jackson's Dead Alive, also known as Brain Dead in New Zealand, because Faye, you have not seen this movie.
Nope, and I want to fix that.
Well, we're going to fix it, and I can't wait to talk about this because, oh boy. Well, you'll just have to come back next week and find out our thoughts on it, but it's going to be something. I can tell you that.
I forgot to give our link, by the way. I just realized that.
Oh,
I'm good at this.
Where can people find Gore?
You just go to gorepodcast.com and then you can find us there.
Excellent. And there is a link at tvstravis.com that goes to gorepodcast.com as well. So you can find that there. But next week we're going to be doing Brain Dead / Dead Alive, however you want to call it. Find it, watch it, and then come back and listen to us talk about it, because that's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. And that will be our final month, or our final week of Spooky Month this year, our yearly October Gore podcast crossovers. So
Aww.
It's always fun to do this every year. I really enjoy it. And I'm glad that you finally got to watch The Omen and check that off the list and say, nope, now I've seen it. I not just seen the clips, the three deaths, the three major deaths in it. You can now check it all out.
And now you're unlocked to watch all the sequels and have fun with those.
Sure. Yeah. That's a thing. So anyway, this has been, wait, you haven't seen? It's a lot of fun. Definitely check out next week, because I can't wait. It's going to just be bonkers. And check out Gore, because we have a lot of fun talking about horror movies in general. So please do that. But for Wicked and Faye and Dread, I just want to say to enjoy your movies and let's be excellent to each other. So wait, you haven't seen.
You know, you could be too sexy for the White House.
Could be.
I